So we're in a catch-22 situation. People won't stop emulating and playing clones until a new TGM game is released, but Mihara won't make a new TGM game unless people stop emulating and cloning. How long is this gonna last? Honestly, we'll never know.
Well, I guess we know now.
The TGM franchise is a series of Japanese exclusive arcade Tetris games released between the late 90s and early 2000s. It's known for being the most difficult Tetris games possible due to the mechanics and the introduction of 20G or instant gravity. It's a quality that has attracted players from around the world, despite the game never officially releasing outside of Japan. Until now. On November 22nd, 2022, Arika announced that TGM1 would be re-released for the Nintendo Switch and PS4 and published by Hamster Inc. The game was going to be released through the Arcade Archive series along with a bunch of other games like Galaxian, and was set for a December 1st release. There were many burning questions from the community, such as additions to the game, if there would be online multiplayer, and how controls would work. But overall, people were excited to finally play an accessible and legal version of TGM1. Previously, the game was extremely hard to come by in arcades, and the arcade boards were being sold for upwards of thousands of dollars on auction sites. Most people resorted to emulation and clone games, but that was a huge gray area. I'll talk more about this in my History of TGM series, which you can check out right here. Now, it was only a matter of waiting. So the game released, and it was as you'd expect. If you've played TGM1 in the arcade or other means, then you've played the Arcade Archives port. There are a few bells and whistles and nice features though. For example, you can pause the game. When you do, you're presented with a bountiful list of options to choose from. You can change how the game is displayed, some of the game settings, and the controls too, which is a huge bonus for people who want to use a fight stick to replicate the arcade experience. You're also able to save the game. There are two other modes that you can play which are accessible at the main menu: Caravan mode and High Score mode. High Score mode is where the online rankings come into play, where you compete with yourself and others to see how far you can get and how fast you can play. You can choose between normal or 20G, a mode that was previously locked behind a button input code. The leaderboards for the PS4 and Switch versions are separate and track only the grade and the time, as well as indicators to show what mode people played in. Caravan mode, on the other hand, is trying to get the highest score you can within 5 minutes. For this one, you can choose between normal or big block mode, another unlockable button input code, which makes all the blocks twice their size. When the game launched, there were a few issues with the Switch port. They consisted of graphical glitches and freezing, which were uncommon but were still detrimental enough to be absolute run killers. I even experienced an issue myself while playing TGM1 Versus, which, by the way, is in the game, and you can play this with sideways Joy-Cons. Unfortunately, it's restricted to local multiplayer only, with no signs in the future to add online. Anyways, the freezing and visual hiccups weren't fixed until December 19th, when a patch was introduced that fixed issues caused by VRAM corruption. Since then, the game has had little to no issues. So, other than that, this port is pretty solid, all things considered. Aside from the minimal glitches, the game delivers at what it promises, while also adding in a few new bells and whistles to mix up the gameplay. The best part about all of this is that you can get this for less than $10, and if this game gets enough attention and enough purchases, we may be able to see a release of the rest of the games in the series, and even possibly TGM4. So if you're a fan of Tetris, definitely give this game a shot. Who knows, maybe one day you might become a Tetris Grandmaster.